Welcome back to the DentalFit Podcast, where we chat with athletes, coaches, and people doing amazing things in fitness, all with a dental twist, of course. My name is Mark, and I'm thrilled to have Lachie McPherson here today, coach at Adept Performance in Geelong, and a former elite sprinter, decathlete with, I don't know if this is true, but you can correct me later, personal best of 11.08 seconds in the 100 meters, 6.788 in the decathlon. Lachie's now chasing an incredible new goal representing Australia in the bobsled team for the 2026 Milan Winter Olympics. We'll dive into athletic discipline, coaching insights, and the Olympic journey with laughs, lighthearted detours, and practical takeaways for you fitness enthusiasts out there. So let's get into it. Welcome, Lachie. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming all the way down.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, is it bobsleigh or bobsled?
Well,
I get confused.
So bobsleigh would be the singular.
Okay.
Yeah. So if it was like we're just referring to I'm a bobsleigh athlete,
Yep.
then it would be that. But obviously I'm in a bobsled team with a group of men.
So bobsleigh, like, it sounds cool, like, you know, like Santa's weekend car or something like that. But it sounds like really fast. But I didn't actually know. I just wanted to ask, have you watched Cool Runnings?
Yeah.
Okay. For those who don't know, like, it's a 1993 movie about the Jamaican four-man bobsled team. Got that right? And they actually debuted in the Calgary Winter Olympics in 1988. But yeah, when did you watch that? And
I would have watched it as a kid,
Yeah.
as I reckon anyone would have. It would have just popped up on TV or like watched it as a VHS. But it was funny enough, we actually had the national combine a couple of weeks ago, and you know the boys woke up and we're in the Airbnb and it's about 5:30. We're having breakfast and everyone goes, "Well, what do we do?" And someone suggested, "Oh, do we just watch Cool Runnings?" So best way to get prepared for a bobsled combine.
best way to get
Just
psyched up.
Get hyped up. Yeah.
Most people won't really get to experience, I guess, what you experience is racing bobsleigh or bobsled just the most fun thing to do in the world?
Well, I'll be able to find out this year, which is exciting. So, I mean, the entry into it for me is essentially the last couple months.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been given a bit of a crash course by the team and watched a bit of footage and just spoken with some of the past Olympians. And, you know, it seems pretty cool to think we're going to go down ice at 150 Ks an hour.
Sounds crazy.
Yeah, a lot of trust in the guy in front. So, fun fact, there are actually steering handles.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know if there was.
Yeah, so we do actually steer it. And, I mean, my job, so I'm a brakeman. So
Yep.
I'm at the back of the sled. I just push it and then I get in and I've got to know the course and trust my pilot.
So it's not like Wet and Wild going down a water slide or anything like that.
It'd be close. It'd be a lot faster. A little bit more Lycra, a little bit more protection in terms of a helmet. But
Yeah.
I guess it's like, yeah, you could basically say it's Wet and Wild on steroids.
My my only knowledge of bobsleigh is Cool Runnings, as we've mentioned, and Tia Claire Toomey, obviously in the CrossFit world, having qualified but not making the team in the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics. Yeah, what is your sort of recollection of that? Because being a CrossFitter, she's sort of big in my world, but I wanted to know what you thought, or what are your thoughts?
I mean, she's someone that I think anyone in Australia just goes, she can do it all.
Mm.
I mean, you know, there's not too many people that you could say have been world's fittest woman, have been an Olympian, Commonwealth Games gold medalist, I'm pretty sure. Done bobsled. She's doing high rocks now. It's just, you know, she's had a kid.
Yeah.
And you just sort of think, where is she going to stop?
Yeah.
I don't think she's going to stop. She'll probably be 65 doing ultra marathons.
Yeah, just won't stop. And just like in Cool Runnings, like I hear you're going to Calgary soon for a 2-month off season.
Yeah, so I'll be over there with my team. A lot of time just on the ice, doing a lot of technical work, just getting us ready to race. We've got a pretty busy sort of race schedule going from, I think, mid-October, end of October until about December. Ideally, everything goes to plan. We'll be going to Utah, New York, over to Whistler, just racing a couple of courses. And I mean, for me, it's obviously, it's exciting to think that it's an Olympic year. There's a chance there that I could hopefully earn myself a spot. And I think that just means that I've got 6 months where I've just got to be on. And, I keep thinking about it going, that's just an exciting prospect.
And what's the road to the Olympics looking like, with this included? So,
I think for me, it's very humbling in the sense of I'm going into somewhere that's very foreign to me.
Yep.
I have probably a very steep learning curve. I think I'm lucky that I have a decent athletic background, but ultimately I'm going to have to nod my head, listen to a lot of people, probably grit my teeth and understand that there's just some things that I'm going to have to do. And I mean, so far the support from the female side and the male side's been incredible. They've been really supportive in the sense of helping me with technical feedback, giving me an understanding of what I'm going into and sort of what they require of me. And I think it's more than I could ask for. I think a lot of the time people think that they have to do things like that on their own. And, I'm happy to take that support and any advice that they're willing to give me.
And I guess fundraising would definitely help. And we can just, I think it's through the Australian Sports Foundation.
Yep.
That's right. And where are you currently at, and where can people sort of donate and help out?
Yeah, so we're really fortunate that the Australian Olympic team's partnered with the ASF to allow for tax-deductible donations. So currently we have a couple of different fundraisers through our individual team members as well as Team Scott bobsled. And we have a couple of links, but basically any donation over $2 is a tax deduction that goes towards supporting our ability to travel, hopefully get better equipment, accommodation. I know the boys last season, some of them were sleeping on air mattresses and on the floor just so that we could have better costs for better equipment and better chances. It's not a sport that's very well recognized or funded, but I think it's something that really shows, and I guess it's something that my pilot Cam talks a lot about. It shows a lot of Australian spirit to go somewhere that we're not used to, in an environment that we're not used to, and just have a big smile and give it everything. I think it's pretty commendable that the guys have done so well the last few years to really establish that network and that foundation, and I think it's something that I really want to be part of. And I mean, really any support that people are willing to give is unreal. So far, it's been incredible to see. I think I've raised about $5,500 in the last 3 weeks. And, I look at some of the names and some of the people, and I just think, it's almost like I don't deserve it, because I'm so grateful that people are willing to do that and support that Olympic dream.
Well, Australia, they really get behind any athletic endeavor. So it's not surprising that you got people like that behind you. But how did you go from sprinting in the sun to sleighing in the snow?
Yeah, it's a little bit weird. I mean, I've kind of had a bit of a hiatus from competitive sport for probably a good part of 5-6 years. Yeah. Kind of wrapped up with COVID, like I think a few people did. It just got a bit hard, and obviously it took a toll on a lot of people. And I kind of went more down the pursuit of the coaching route. Really threw myself into that, and I mean, the whole time I was still training. I think training to me is almost like a religion. It's just part of everyday life. It's something that's going to be good and bad and teach you a lot of really good lessons. And
I hear you.
For me, it's been a massive part of my life. It's allowed me to build a business and give more people opportunities. And would have been maybe 9 months ago, one of the girls on the team, Haley, reached out to me about it and said, "Hey, I think you'd be really good at this." And at the time, I'd started Adept Performance, and I was kind of like, "Oh, I'm a bit busy, sorry." And then March rolled around this year and had a few life changes, and I just sort of reached out to her and said, "Hey, just give me that email. Let's just do it." And weirdly, I was over in America for work, sort of traveling around the US, meeting with a few college coaches, and I was sort of in contact with the members of Bobsled Australia, and they said, "Oh, look, we wouldn't mind just getting some data on you." So conveniently, I was in Dallas, went to Southern Methodist University, Did a little bit, and they basically said, hey, we're going to give you a phone call when you get back to Australia. And I get a phone call from Cam, my pilot, and he basically said, mate, is this stuff real? And I was like, yeah. I was like, I sent you videos. And he's like, yeah, nope, that's good. And was really fortunate. He went in and rooted for me, and I got invited to the National Combine. Went through the testing battery. I actually rolled my ankle in the warm-up.
Nice.
So I had this fat ankle and ate a load of Panadol and somehow did pretty well. And then, yeah, it's just sort of been full steam ahead since that.
What data did they want from when you were in Dallas?
They essentially wanted some speed data. So
Yeah.
I did a couple of 40-yard dashes.
Okay.
They wanted some lift data. So like squat, power clean.
They're like, hey, squat right now.
Yeah, pretty much. I was like, oh, it's not really on the plan, but
Clean this.
yeah. And I mean, I'm driving around America, so I'm driving 8 to 12 hours every day. So I just get out of the car and I'm like, okay, let's do this.
Just 1 rep max. Just
I was three rep.
Whoa.
So I think at the time it was like maybe I think I did 220.
no.
You know,
Lightweight, baby.
driving 8 hours and got out of the car, hope for the best, and I was like, oh, that wasn't that bad.
The hips were like, yeah, okay, let's just do it.
Oh man, yeah, it was an interesting trip. I was over there for like a month, and it was just drive, meet a coach, work out, drive, meet a coach, work out.
Sounds like heaven.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad, honestly. But yeah, and then went back to the combine and blew those numbers out of the water, and that was pretty cool.
So it sounds like you were able to use a lot of things you'd already built up in the athletics world for bobsled, but how is training for bobsled different to athletics and track and field?
I think it has a lot of crossover in the sense of there's obviously a lot of speed and power. For me, the biggest change has been the technical demand to push the sled. So body positions and how we actually propel the sleds, probably going to be my hardest challenge the next few months, just being comfortable with those. But just like anything, it takes reps, breaking it down. Like any athlete, it's not linear. Some people take longer, some people will take less time. I'm optimistic I won't take too long, but I think that also involves, like we sort of talked about, leaning on people to help me with that, sending that footage, just getting that feedback and just being open to, okay, this is what I need to do. This is what I need to change. This is the most important part. Other than that, it's lifting weights. I've got to get a little bit bigger. So eating a bit more food, which is,
It's fun.
it's fun. It's tough.
Tough.
I was eating a bit and now I'm like, oh man, I just adding in.
How much are you weighing at the moment?
I'm about 82 and I've got to be probably around that 85 mark for racing. So it's not a big jump.
Not a big, but you've got to put in work.
Yeah. Yeah. They wanted me to be 90 and I was like, for my frame, I'm like, no.
Jump off a weight category.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know where that's going to go. It's either going to go my neck or my thighs. So it's.
And just going back to the training, it's not, there might be a misconception that it's just like pushing a sled at the gym, and it sounds like it's far from that. It's way more technical, and how is it different, just in case people are assuming that, oh yeah, I do sled push, I chuck on all the plates and it's easy. Well,
for reference, like a 4-man sled weighs about 230 kilos. And being a brakeman means that, you're pushing that with your team. So, I mean, like the sled that I've built is on wheels, so I'm pretty lucky with that. But, we loaded up to probably about 300 pounds, so about 140 kilos.
Yeah.
And it's all about trying to keep a stiff torso, dropping the body into a really deep position, and then just pushing through the knees. So it's not quite that sort of high rocks, get yourself into a bit of a warp position that's advantageous. It's more about, this is a strong body position that's going to create an acceleration and that's going to ideally move the sled well. But on the inverse side of that, there's a really good quote from track and field coach Ralph Mann that physics doesn't care. So it's a little bit the same with training. Like biology doesn't care. Like there's stresses that we need to put on the body that are going to create change. So with speed, there's only a limiting stimulus of how much we can do before we start to fatigue and really sort of lose the mark on that. It's the same with strength training. And I think my coach, Brandon's pretty fortunate in the sense I can handle a pretty heavy amount of volume. Like I'm squatting 5 times a week, pretty heavy. But with the track work, it's we only get 2 to 3 really good exposures in a week. So for me, the biggest change in that's been the technical work with the sled has to come first, and then we still have to work on that speed development as well.
So you're prioritizing the things that you need to sort of work on more as a skill level, and then reverting back to the stuff that, you know, you can put in the grunt work and just, you can put in the volume and the reps of those other things. I love a good DIY project. I saw that sled.
Yeah.
I was, you know, I've got my own kegs at home and like Atlas stones and stuff. So seeing you come up with that, I just thought, oh, that is great. How did that come about? How did you make it? Did you consult anyone, or was this just off the top of your head?
Yeah. I mean, funnily enough, like I grew up in the country, and one of my really close family friends, Mark Anderson, lives out in Tooborac near Puckapunyal and has a full workshop. I guess talking with Cam, he was like, you know, you got to build a sled. And I was like, okay, how do I do that? And I just sort of was on like Instagram, and there's a girl on the US team, Sydney, I forget her last name, but she actually had a sled built by Sorinex.
Oh, nice.
And I was looking at it going, I can build that. So I was trolling on Marketplace and found a squat rack, and I went, yep, sweet. Bought it. The guy was like, what are you going to do with it? And I was like, I'm just going to squat. I didn't want to tell him I was going to cut it up. I just didn't have the heart to tell him. He was a really nice guy. And,
and he was really attached to his squat rack.
Yeah, he was really, really into it. I was like, I don't know why you're selling this. But took that up to the country, and yeah, Mark and I cut it up, welded it all together. Took about 2 days, but yeah, no, we just built it based off that rough design that I'd seen that Sydney had, and gave it a little test around the other day. It moves really well, needs a little bit of reinforcement, but overall it's going to be a really beneficial training tool.
Nice. Well, that's often the way to, I guess, you know, DIY projects can help you through these sticky points, because you just don't have sleds lying around and ice tracks lying around, right?
Yeah, it's not really like you can just Google, buy a dry land bobsled. Yeah, it just
doesn't exist.
No.
So let's rewind, I guess, back to your roots as an athlete and your athletic background. You've got roots in rugby, surf lifesaving, track and field. How did these early experiences sort of shape your mindset and your discipline?
I think it was sort of more like growing up in the country. Mum and dad were really supportive of, they never really pushed me to do anything. They were more like, we just want you to be happy and do what you enjoy doing. And, you know, I wanted to try things, and, you know, I asked my dad, you know, what did you do? And he was like, I played rugby. So I was like, all right, I'll do that. And, you know, they'd take me to like karate, and I was like, I don't want to do karate. But, you know, I think it was just for me now, I always look back at the support my mum and dad gave me, like driving me out from Little River to Werribee, to Melbourne, to into Geelong. And, you know, at the time there wasn't a ring road, and so it's not a short trip. No. And I just think that was almost every day that mum and dad would work, you know, 9 to 5, pick me up from school, take me to the sport. We'd get home at like 8 o'clock, and I'd have to do my homework. And, you know, as a kid, you don't really appreciate it. But then when you get older, you go, oh, they actually did a lot for me. And I think for me with sport, a lot of that comes from there, where I feel like I don't necessarily owe them because of what they did, but because of the effort and the time that they gave me. It's something that I guess I look to the future and go, well, that's what I want to do for my kids. And that's sort of been a big driver for me, is what I do now is going to dictate my future. So if I succeed, I succeed because I worked hard. And if I fail, that's just something that happens. So rather than going, I failed because I didn't do this, it's, well, this might have been inevitable. And I know it's a bit of a perplexing one, but for me, you've just got to do stuff. You've got to try. Yeah. There's nothing worse than going home and sitting there and going, I should have done that. And I just don't want that anymore. Or not that I have it anymore, but there's a lot of my life now where if I want to do something, I'm going to pick up the phone, I'm going to call the person. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to get up in the morning, I'm going to go do it. Yeah. And I think that's ultimately what's led to this point where I guess I'm being recognized for my efforts and given an opportunity. And I know that similar to my parents, I owe it to the other guys that are just vying for the same thing, doing everything that they can. So I don't think it would be fair for me to half-ass it.
There was Yeah, I was listening to the other podcast you were on before, and
Oh yeah.
they did say that you were, because it sounds like they're friends of yours, and
Was it Kurt and Bailey?
Kurt and Bailey,
Yeah.
and they said you're you're a doer, like, and that's exactly what you've just said. You sound like you don't procrastinate. Just you think of something, you go and do it.
Yeah.
And that's very admirable. How did these sports set you up physically as well?
I think, they're all power based. They've all require a high level of effort and probably an aspect that requires you to get uncomfortable. You look at rugby union, there's bash and crash. You look at surf life saving. I don't particularly like getting in cold water. I guess that's a bit of a...
That's surprising.
Yeah, it's not my thing. Even the sand, I'm just like, oh.
So you don't do the ice baths or anything like that?
Not really, no. I don't mind a hot tub, but yeah, cold water, I'm like, I say this and I'm about to go to Calgary where it's going to be negative 25. But then track and field, I did the 100 and then I did the 400 and, they all have their demands, but even the decathlon, you're training for 10 events.
Yeah. What is the decathlon for people who don't know?
So it's 10 track and field events over 2 days. The order's always the same. So day 1 is the 100, the long jump, shot put, high jump, 400. And then day 2 is the 110 meter hurdles, discus, pole vault, and the javelin, and the 1500.
Jeez.
So it's...
so you got to be all the... sounds like CrossFit.
Yeah, pretty much.
You got to be jacked and fast.
Pretty much, yeah. And then you got to be able to run a 15.
And mobile and...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and you got to have the endurance. Yeah. You got to do the 15. Oh my god.
Yeah, and a lot of the time the comps are in Queensland and it's hot and you're just out in the sun for 2 days.
Damn.
So it's fun and you're always with good people because they're like-minded. Yeah. I guess that's probably one of those really cool aspects, especially in those like probably not major sports where you're with people that it's their choice to be there. And I think that's probably one of those things where I'm like, well, it's my choice to be here and I want to do this because I enjoy it. And I think that's what's probably kept me training as well.
How do these decathlon foundations stack up against the demands of bobsleigh? You said there's similarities. Is it all the same or like tell me a bit more about that?
It's definitely less training time. But I think really a lot of it comes down to those technical demands. You're in a sport where things can go wrong really quick. So ultimately, the better you prepare, the less those risks are going to be prevalent. So I guess when I look at the decathlon, as much as there was a lot more volume required, it took a long time to, I'd never say master the events, but become proficient within the events. And, I'd love to say 2020 to 2025, what I could do, but obviously I stopped and I went to other pursuits. But it's funny, like every now and then I'll go down to the track and, my coach will still be coaching pole vault and I'll just go down and have a random jump. And it's not great, but I'm like, I can still kind of do this. Yeah. And, we throw medicine balls at work and I'm like, maybe I could go do shot put again. But I definitely couldn't hurdle again. I don't know if my hips are prepared for that. I think it'd take a long time to get back to that point. But
were you squatting the same back then?
I don't think so.
No.
I probably would have been box squatting or belt squatting.
Yeah.
Now it's just ass to grass.
Yeah. I mean, you got really good at decathlon. You got top 4 in Australia. But the Commonwealth Games and Olympics were just out of reach. Can you share what happened there?
I think like at the end of the day, there's guys that were better than me. I can be realistic and say I had a lot to develop. I still sort of look back and go, I think like World University Games would have been a great sort of stepping stone to be able to go, probably 1, staying in the sport, and then 2, probably going, maybe I want to pursue this in a greater detail. Because, at the time I was young, I was working probably 2 to 3 jobs, full-time university. At one point probably had a girlfriend, all those external things. And
I like that. Probably had a girlfriend.
Probably at some stage there was one in there.
It was
somewhere.
all a blur.
Yeah, it was all a blur. Well, I mean, and like I'm young, so you kind of get those distractions where you're like, I want to party.
Yeah.
And like I'd probably say I partied in a mature way where like, I'd have a couple of drinks, go with my mates, but late nights out take their toll. And especially now more as a coach and sort of delving into what are those biological and hormonal effects, you go, okay, well, these short-term events can actually have long-term effects on our training, and they compound. And I think that's probably my view of why things are out of reach. You know, like I sort of said, like it's on you at the end of the day, whether you succeed or fail. And I guess I can be honest with myself and say, well, it was probably inevitable that those higher levels might not have been attainable because of my choices. But at the same time, that's a short-term view. And long-term, you know, you need to have those moments that humble you and make you go, well, what am I not doing right? And what do I need to do? And I think that's what's led me to here, where I know one of the athletes I used to love watching was Trey Hardy. He was the Olympic silver medalist in the decathlon, world champion. And he talked about the year that he won Worlds. And he said, you know, I became a no man. And it was, you know, do you want to go do this? No, I've got training in the morning. Or do you want to eat this? No, like I need to eat this. And he said in a podcast, you know, he got that gold medal and he just thought everything was worth it. And then he got the silver medal at the Olympics, and it was the same thing because he had that same mentality of what is the most important thing to me right now? Because I know at 35, I'm not going to be in the same position I am right now because I'll probably have a family, a mortgage. The business will be hopefully busier.
There'll be no further reasons.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And, you know, you'll like, I figure I can still make time for myself, but I don't know if it'd be at the level of athletic focus that it would be that it can be right now.
And you mentioned before things started to stagnate after COVID. How did you know at that point that you weren't going to continue in track and field?
I think I just sort of found a new passion for coaching, and I sort of fell in love with the information that I was getting. And I think it was sort of more of a what's next sort of thing. So I wouldn't say that I ever was like, oh, I'm done with track and field. Because I think I went overseas for a few years, and in my mind I was like, oh, I'll just go back to track. It probably wasn't until like 2 years ago that I was like, oh yeah, I don't think that's part of my life anymore. And yeah, I still coach track and field and I love it, but I think I have a lot more to give as a coach. You know, obviously I've got this great opportunity in front of me, then I'm being selfish in the sense of I'm giving more time to that right now. But you know, I started doing more courses and reading and just immersing myself in that world more. And it just felt more natural. I seemed to be enjoying my days a little bit more. And I think that was sort of the nail in the coffin in a positive light that was like, I think this is more what I'm meant to do.
It must have been I guess a bit of a confusing time in your life around then. And, you said you mentioned you went overseas at that point. What drove that?
I think COVID was a big factor in that. You know, it's like anyone that lived
Get
in
out
Victoria.
of Melbourne and lockdowns.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it was tough, and I think knowing sort of my personality, the constant changing of environment and the constant changing of we're in, we're out, we're in, we're out. I just couldn't handle it very well, and I just wanted some level of, I guess, stability. And I think I woke up one morning, I saw there was like an advert for an internship at the University of Minnesota, and I just went, stuff it, I'm just going to apply. And I did it, got an email back probably 2 days later, hey, we're really sorry, we picked another applicant. They said, you know, you should probably pursue the University of Texas, and I did. And it was the best decision I ever did. It showed me what that next level of athlete looks like. It shows me what that next level of coach looks like. It was very much the Dunning-Kruger moment of I was like, I know so little, and I just wanted to know everything. And I think that was a really cool period of my life, and it's built me some really good connections and given me a lot of really good opportunities, especially back in Australia. And yeah, I think that sort of mindset shift came from just being in that different environment.
And this was ultimately the road to lead you into coaching and and getting to Adept Performance. So how did that come about?
I think I'd have to go back a bit with that, actually. When I came back to Australia, I was sort of in a bit of a weird limbo situation where I was really lucky to be working with some guys at Collingwood Football Club and some of the women at Brisbane Lions, and I was, you know, on planes and driving everywhere, but it just, again, wasn't stable. And for me, it just wasn't, I loved it, but you get to the end of the day and you're like, I don't know if I can do this forever. And a friend of mine, Jared Kay, he owns a performance gym in Moorabbin called Six Principle, reached out to me and said, hey, we're looking for a guy just to help fill in. He had some coaches away. They were just traveling. And I said, yeah, I'm happy to come up. My godfather lived like 10 minutes from there. So initially it was, I think maybe 1 or 2 days a week, go up, coach. And that ended up being like 5 days a week and I was loving it. But same thing, a lot of highway driving. But the way that Jared had a business model was semi-private coaching. And it was very similar to the college system where you get your team in, you're floating around the room, you're making sure that you're creating autonomy within your athletes. And I sort of felt like I could bring that to Geelong. And another friend of mine, Johnny Burke, had a gym. He had this sort of ratty corner. And I just walked up to him and said, hey, if I throw a load of money in and build a little setup, can I train some guys here? And he was like, yeah, sure. And a couple guys turned into probably 24 guys, some VFL footballers, some AFL guys, mix of like track and field, basketballers. And I just thought, this is what I want to do. And, it just felt really cool to bring something to Geelong that wasn't really there. There was some places, but they were more focused on like different audiences. And basically Johnny sold his gym and I was like, oh, I don't know where I'm going to do this. And, had a business partner and then he pulled out and I was like, that's fair enough. And just sort of figured out, we had this opportunity with an MMA group who had a pretty big space with a lot of spare room and pretty much did the same thing. I said, hey, if I throw a load of money in here, can I coach? And they were like, yep, sure. And I said, my only condition is a guy I was mentoring at the time, Zach Plukan, had to come with me. And they were like, yep, no worries. So Zach and I went into the space. I think we walked in there with 30 athletes. Within 2 to 3 months, we probably had 60. Wow. And I was like, oh, we got to put more money in. We got to get another coach. And we got another coach, Louis Mott. So he was working at Melbourne Storm at the time. He's with the Cats AFLW. And it's been about a year now. Wow. We've got this pretty cool space. We're probably working with close to 100 athletes. And
it's just growing. And
it's
going good. How who's your clientele? Who are your people that are you looking to get in? You've mentioned a few.
Yeah.
But what type of person or people are you trying to train?
I won't say anyone because I don't think that's what we want. We want probably the people that want to succeed. So we don't care if people play local league football, whether they're VFL, AFL. We've got guys that play Canadian Football League, NFL. We've got an Olympian. We just basically want a mindset of you're going to come in, you're going to train, you're going to support everyone around you. And that's essentially what we've built. And I think the culture's been the biggest part for us. Everyone comes in, everyone knows each other, everyone says hello. We have paper sheets with everyone's programs, so no one's on their phones.
That's a good one.
Everything's dictated about environment. And I think that's been the big focus for us. And it's attracting more people. But at the same time, we kind of have to sift through, like we always say to everyone, hey, if you want to come in and train here, we'll give you a free week. Just see if it's for you. But it's not really for them. It's for us to see, do they fit the mold? Are they going to talk to everyone? Are they training with intent? Like all the things that matter to us and kind of fit our core values. Because I think if those are missing, then it's sort of going to slow down our progressions.
What are some of those core values that you have at Adept?
For us, I think it's having that drive or focus to take it to another level. One of the girls that we have in there, she's an E-grade netballer, but she's coming back from an ACL. She benches close to 90 kilos. She deadlifts 200. And at the end of the day, she's a fifth division netballer. She's got no business doing that, but she comes in, she trains hard, she interacts with everyone really, really well. And I think for us, that community's a big value as well. Just knowing that, and it's probably one of the things that I've really enjoyed hearing is a lot of our clientele are 18 to 22. So they go to university, they see each other at university, they say hi. The VFL guys are playing VFL at GMHBA Stadium or Deakin University, and people are telling me, oh, I'm going down to watch them. And I'm like, it's almost like opposite worlds. And you just sort of think, I don't know how these people would know each other otherwise, but they're going down and supporting each other. They're talking to each other. And it's almost like one of those missing links at the moment with the world. And I'm like, it's cool to see that we've built something that's still keeping some level of good in our community.
It definitely is getting lost in the world. So it's good to see that you have it there. I've seen some cool things on your Instagram, and there's lots of cool Olympic lifts and plyometrics and bands and all what's the sort of it reminds me of Louis Simmons and the whole conjugate method and West Side Barbell, and rest in peace, Louis.
Yeah. Actually, I was really lucky. I got to meet Louis before he passed away.
No way.
Yeah. So when I was in the
like?
US, it was like the old Lion on the Rock. Like you could tell his time was done, but you look at him and go, there's so much history and success in that guy. Like I remember I was sitting in my apartment in Texas and I saw this notification that Louis Simmons had passed away, and I thought it was a joke. I was like, there's no way. He's got that tattoo that said whenever he was born, but it died never. Mm. And to see that, I think it just shook everybody because no one could believe it.
Yeah.
But
just seemed like he'd live forever.
Yeah, he was unstoppable. He kept getting broken and getting back up.
Yeah. What's your training philosophy at Adept, and why do you train people this way?
I think for me, there's a couple of different aspects to it. I think part of it's come from my education and looking at a lot of the Eastern Bloc information. An athlete isn't made overnight. In my mind, it's not 4 weeks, it's 4 years. And for me, it's, we have to nail movement progression. And that might look very different for everybody depending on who they are, how they've grown up, what their training history is, what their sport is. But I think for me, my philosophy is means to an ends. So if we have someone that needs to get stronger, we'll get them stronger, but we have to look at, well, what can they do and what can't they do and what do we need to do? So that might paint 6 months of training for us. And we'll be realistic with someone about that. But at the same time, funnily enough, I get a guy to come in today and, I say to him, what do you want to do? And he wants to get more powerful. And I sort of said, okay, well, there's a couple of different factors that we have to look at. So we have to look at, force is a major factor. But at the same time, we have to look at ways that we can apply that force. So he has access to a Kaiser squat. So I go, awesome. We can do air-based resistance, no gravity affected, constant acceleration. That's going to build us power.
What is a Kaiser squat?
So it's it's a really interesting device. I'd have to show you a photo.
It's not at those Kaiser gyms.
No. So that's
okay.
Kaiser. So that's
Kaiser.
that's like
All
the
right.
old people gym.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Kaiser, they have these cylinders that compress air, and you can build up as much resistance as you want.
Oh yeah.
And it can tell you like max wattage, and keeps count of all your reps, and you can sort of compare, which is really cool. But when we look at the force that you can produce out of that, because there's no gravity acting on that air, it's a constant state of acceleration compared to, say, like if I have a barbell with 180 kilos on it, that 180 kilos has gravity acting on it as well. So as I try and rise through that concentric portion, we've also got gravity acting on me, so I'm decelerating. So two different aspects or two different buckets that we could look at, but they're both super important, especially for this guy. But probably one thing that we do look at is, for a lot of people, they might not be ready for what they want. So for a lot of people, power training is very violent, very volatile. We require velocities that are probably things that they're not used to. And we have to make sure that, can they move well? Do they have a robust frame? Are they strong enough? And strong enough is probably a hard one to answer. Is 2 times body weight strong enough? Maybe. Depends what they want to do. You look at a high jumper and they apply 7 times their body weight into their foot when they take off. It's like, how am I putting them under 7 times body weight with a squat?
Yeah.
Or even a barbell jump? Probably crush them. But I think ultimately, like, my philosophy is we just have to fit to that person. And a lot of that comes from, I need to be the most probably equipped coach to do that. So that might mean I need to be a motivator. So for a lot of people, psychology is such a big factor. If they're not wanting to train or they don't enjoy their environment, they're not going to train well. Some people come in and they just want to train the house down, and that's great. But then same thing with psychology. We've got to get them to trust, in the sense of maybe we need to pull back, or maybe we just need to do just enough. Whereas for other people, it's making sure that programming works, knowing that we might have to periodize a certain way. We might be able to use some sport tech like a velocity-based tracker and go, hey, after 3 reps, you decelerate. So we're going to work to 3 reps, and maybe we're going to do some clusters because that's going to work better for us. I know we've got an athlete at the moment, he's got cerebral palsy. So we know that high volume reps in his lower limbs aren't going to cut it because he's going to fatigue out. And if he's got minimal motor patterning, something's going to go wrong. So we know that we have to fit that need to him.
Let's probably lighten it up a little because we've been very serious.
Yeah, I got a bit sciencey then, didn't I?
No,
Sorry.
I love it. I love it. And I just want to know, like, being at a gym, there's obviously some pet peeves. What's your biggest pet peeve at the gym?
Oh. I think for me, leaving weight on a barbell. No, that's not the pet peeve.
No.
The pet peeve is 2 plates that are not the same. So I'm not talking metal and bumper. I'm talking if I have a Rogue bumper plate and an Eleiko bumper plate.
Why?
I just can't do it.
Why would they?
It's got to be like Rogue and Rogue.
What about like 2 5s to balance out a 10?
Oh, no, you can't do that. No. If someone did that in our gym, we tell them to go home.
What about like when you have a 15 and a 15 instead of like just chucking like 25 and then 5?
I can live with that.
You can live with those.
I can live with that.
Those,
yeah,
like,
provided they're the same like.
But
breadth.
provided they're not.
Yeah, they can't be different plates.
What fitness myth do you wish would just die?
Oh,
it's probably some.
I think what's that? There's that training method. It's like recomp. You know, the one where it's like, oh, if I do 15 reps of this weight, then my predicted 1 rep max is, 250 kilos.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. We're talking about relative strength and
like a
maximum
predictor.
strength.
Yeah.
Some of them in the smaller schemes, like anything in training, it depends. But that method needs to just be forgotten.
It's like never testing your 1RM, but then doing like 15s all the time and saying, oh yeah, my 1RM is
based off
this,
the
based
percentage.
off that.
But like you look at the conversion charts, there's like 7. So which one do you go off? What's your margin of error? See, this is where I get worked up. I'm just like, what are you thinking about it? Like, it all depends.
Yeah, just give me your 1 rep max now, and then we'll know what your 1 rep max is.
Yeah, I don't like using absolutes, but I think the myth is that training method works when you get strong. Because if you're like, if you can squat 200 for 15, good on you. But I don't think you're squatting 300 for 1. I'm put that out there.
I just want to see it. I just want to see that 300.
Yeah,
that's it. You probably won't find that.
Probably not.
Meal prep. What's your go-to meal prep dish?
Do you want the full day, or do you want just like the one that's like the staple?
The staple, the easiest, the first that's sort of like
probably the egg bake. So I get I used to do egg muffins in the muffin tin, but I got a bit lazy and it was just a nightmare to clean. So I get a baking tray.
Yeah.
And I get about 24 eggs and I blend them up, pour it in, and then I'll just throw like deli chicken, bacon, cheese, maybe some veggies.
Oh man.
Bake that for 30 minutes. It's easy, and then I just cut it up and put it in foil, and that's the easiest breakfast I have.
Josh, we got to put the recipe for that on link here.
Just put that in the link.
Yeah, because that's and what's the weirdest thing you've probably seen at the gym? It doesn't have to be your gym. Probably won't be at your gym.
Oh, we got
or some TikTok.
We got some weird characters. I think the weirdest thing, and it's probably a bit anticlimactic, is one guy picked up a trap bar to spin it around.
Oh.
Yeah, so an enclosed trap bar, and he didn't like that it was facing one way. So he picked it up and he spun it around.
That's actually
and
hilarious.
Everybody stopped and just watched. And I won't name him because it's pretty embarrassing, but
that's the best.
Yeah, that pops in my head every now and then. I'm like,
well, if you need a laugh in the middle of the day, if the day's got serious, you just think of that, and it's
pretty much
everything lightens up. I guess from the discipline that we've spoken about in training and and in coaching, down to everyday performance, I want to talk about stuff that's probably more important to me here. So sorry if I'm hijacking this, but this is I wanted to know how important you think oral health is in athletic performance, and if you see a link between them?
I think there is definitely, like, confidence is key. And, I think a lot of people value their teeth. They value, like, oral health. Like, I know if I've got a meeting, the first thing I'm doing is finding mint gum to make sure that I don't have bad breath. Even before I came up here, I was like, oh man, I better brush my teeth.
Nice.
I think that it's just one of those little factors that just matters. It's just like wearing a good outfit, getting a good night's sleep. It's part of, I hope, almost everyone's daily routine is brush your teeth twice a day, making sure that you're looking after yourself. I mean, again, for bobsled, I've got to get bigger. So I've got to eat. I've got to make sure that my teeth are in a good spot, that I'm not staining my teeth for, like I talked about earlier, the future. I don't want to have, brown teeth from all the coffee that I drink.
And daily oral health routines are not just about brushing and flossing. There's a lot more that I feel, trickles over into the athletic world. It's about nutrition. It's about sleep. I mean, you can't eat without your teeth. Sleep is about airways, and recovery as well is also about being able to breathe and get that oxygen in. And I think there's a lot of people that think it's the teeth are just what oral health is about, but it's actually being able to breathe and being able to have that passage. And I think it sometimes gets overlooked. How do you balance, I guess, sleep, nutrition, recovery in your current life?
For me at the moment, it's becoming more important, especially with trying to get to that elite level of sport. I think making sure that I'm eating the right foods, making sure I'm not sort of neglecting those little factors like sleep. If I need to make sure I'm catching up on sleep, I am making sure I'm in the right environment. Same thing with, I think if I went to bed and didn't brush my teeth, it's almost like kind of feeling a bit naked. It's like wearing shoes without socks. And I'm like, I need to fix this.
Have you ever used any mouth guards for athletic performance or for recovery?
I used to actually wear a bottom mouth guard when I lifted because I used to grind my teeth a bit. So that was honestly a godsend. I think the brand was, I don't know if I can talk about the brand.
You can talk about brands.
I think it was called Airwave.
Yeah.
I saw strongman Mitchell Hooper using it, and I just went, I'll just give it a go. And honestly, I would have like pain in the back of my mouth just from like gritting my teeth when I was squatting or deadlifting, and just putting that in, I think it's honestly made a massive difference for me. I don't wear it as much now. I normally just chew gum when I lift. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing.
Well, I think there's a definite correlation between force with your teeth and force output, in terms of whatever you're in strength sports mainly.
Yeah.
There possibly is some carryover into the endurance world, but it's interesting that you've done that because, maybe that's a little science project.
Yeah.
We could test out and just see. But it's common. I mean, in the strongman world, to the more you grit your teeth, the more load you can carry.
Yeah.
And for longer periods of time. So.
Oh, for sure.
I don't know the science behind it, but I just know that it exists. So.
Yeah.
It also carries over to, I guess, people clenching at night and things like that. But definitely having something between your teeth is better than gum.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you don't have anything, then definitely gum is probably better than not having anything.
Yeah.
And nasal breathing, is that important in your training?
Yeah. So I actually, when I was 12 years old, I got attacked by a dog and basically tore my face up. I've been really fortunate. I had a bit of plastic surgery done and some acid washing. So if I tip my nose, you can see it's pretty sort of curved up.
Yep.
So for me, like, I have to really look after my nose, and being able to breathe through my nose is a really big factor.
Yeah.
I know it's definitely affected my sleep quality. I've been really lucky. I got referred to do a sleep study, and overall, like, my sleep's not that bad, but it could definitely be better. And I think I've probably considered a CPAP mask, which I don't know at 27 if that's a bit of an ick for people, but if it makes a difference for me and my health, I'm willing to do it. But for me especially, like, I know I don't really breathe through my mouth. A lot of the time my mouth's generally closed, or I'm chewing gum, so I'll breathe through my nose.
Yeah.
So it's especially when I get sick, it just ruins my week.
And so despite having that, you still got patency through your nose, you can still breathe through it.
Yeah.
And
One nostril's a bit better than the other, but
yeah.
yeah.
And have you heard of nasal dilators? They're
No.
these like cone-shaped devices that you can put in your nose. So we sometimes look, because we're staring down people's mouths all day as dentists, we're usually the first ones to see nasal obstruction. And there are these nose cones available now that you can just put in. You look like it just flares them out a bit.
Yeah.
And for those who have collapsed, I guess, cartilage or, boxers and rugby players or people who have had surgery, it works wonders because it just opens it up. And it's different from having the nose tape that you see most high rocks people have. That works for some people, but doesn't work for all people, because all you have to do is just press this out and test it out, see if it'll work for you or not. But for some people, the constriction is here. And so if you just put the nasal dilators in, you might you can get them from the chemist.
I'll have to check that out.
It's the easiest thing. You can even wear them while you sleep. And retest your sleep study and see if that was the thing that instead of getting a CPAP and having an loud
having this mask on my face
noisy
forever.
machine and mask. Airwave also have a sleep mouth guard.
I did see that. I was sort of curious to test that out.
And whilst it's hard to say if it works or not, the principles are correct in that it, I've seen some CrossFit athletes market it and endorse it, and it does make space for your tongue. But what's the most important thing for getting good sleep, if you're not going to have a CPAP, is having a mouth guard that postures your jaw forward. And by pushing your jaw forward, it opens up your airways. And we can see that sometimes on a 3D X-ray. We can see that your airways are actually constricted when you're sleeping. So this just opens them up. But I just wanted to touch on some of these points, because nutrition, sleep, and recovery are things that are part of every athlete's life, and it's all about these little things that can help. If you weren't in sports, what career do you think you'd be in?
I'd probably be in the military, or probably in the police force or something. I think, again, it just goes back to that. I like structure. I was a pretty outdoorsy kid, and I mean, especially my time in the US, I'm not a stranger to firearms and blowing things up and being a redneck. So,
nice.
I think if that's something that I could do as a job, I'd probably do it. I think I'm definitely in a good position where there's a lot less risk right now for my life and my mental health. So, I think that's probably the route that I'd go down.
Lachie, this has been awesome. We'll wrap it up here. And look, I guess what we've learned today is that if sprinting doesn't work for you, try bobsleigh. And you can take bold pivots in sport, even at elite levels. The power of daily discipline pays off, and how channeling your athletic experiences can help with all aspects of your life. So for listeners who want to support you for the Milan journey, how can they help out via the fundraiser? Do you want to just mention that again?
So again, thanks to the partnership between the Australian Olympic team and the Australian Sports Foundation. If anyone is wanting to donate, there's links at the ASF website that allow you to make a tax-deductible donation to myself or the team or any of the individual members of the Australian bobsled contingency. Every dollar goes toward supporting that dream and allowing us to get some really good Australian athletes on that Olympic stage.
And where can they find you on socials?
So Instagram's probably my biggest platform. So Lachie McP, or if they want to follow the Adept Performance page, we're pretty big on trying to obviously showcase our athletes, as well as try and provide some really good coaching information.
Thank you so much, Lachie. Your journey is truly inspiring. To everyone listening, start building those small daily routines, including your oral health. Train smart, dream big, and If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, drop a review. It supports the show a ton. And we'll catch you next time on the DentalFit Podcast. Stay dental fit, Melbourne.
Awesome. No worries.